If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Redondo Beach, California and the surrounding South Bay area, then hit subscribe so you can stay current in what's happening in Redondo Beach. My name is David Coe. I have lived in Redondo Beach for over 30 years and been a realtor for the last 20. Myself and my team at the Coe Real Estate Group, we love to help people navigate the move here to Redondo Beach. And whether that's 9 days or 900 days away for you, we would love to be connected with you. All of our contact info is in the description, and we'd be happy to help you make a smooth move to Redondo Beach or the South Bay area. Hey everyone, David Coe, the Coe Real Estate Group. Hey, welcome back to Living Life here in the South Bay, where we talk about all things home ownership here in the South Bay in the Los Angeles area. And today we're actually going to focus on something that really affects both buyers and sellers. Although first we're going to start off talking about buyers, and that is a home inspection. It's one of the first critical things that happens after you open escrow. And, to talk about that, I wanted to bring in my good friend, Kevin Held with Pillar to Post Inspections. Kevin's done all kinds of inspections for me over the years, again, both on the buy side and the sell side. So Kevin, first of all, thank you for joining today.
No, thanks for having me, David. Great to see you in any context. I like it when your clients are paying me, but it's good too.
Well, you know what? Like speaking of paying you, my clients have paid you for a range of services beyond just
Yeah,
doing regular inspections. You also do a wide variety of inspections. What are some of the other things that you can do that people can hire you for?
absolutely. So a home inspection is crawl space to attic, every possible structure or component of the home, from the structure to the plumbing to the electrical to the um, interior, the exterior, HVAC appliances, everything. And in addition to that, um, some home inspectors and I can do some additional services such as sewer scoping, mold testing, water testing, allergen, air quality testing, pool and spa inspections. So, I have tried to become as much of a one-stop shop as possible, so that people can get as much done in one appointment as they can.
Yeah, I know you and I have done a lot of sewer inspections. That's one of those
Yeah,
things that, is completely underground and a seller or a buyer has really no idea what the condition of that is, but it's
no idea.
really important and
And
before you buy a home.
yes, completely. And a normal home inspection uh, will never find anything in the sewer, just by testing at the taps or running the dishwasher or the tubs and the showers. You'll never find
Right.
problems that are 60 feet down the line doing that.
Yeah.
So actually, sewer scoping is my most added service. And as Pillar to Post is a franchise, and we have owners across North America, it is this year going to become the most added service across the entire system. So it's a huge trend, and people are seeing the value of it nationwide.
Well, look, before we get into inspections and what you do, I think the first question is, is what are some things buyers should be looking at before they even write an offer? And I always tell buyers that they think about when they write an offer and they buy a home or put an offer on a home, they think they're buying a home, but they're really not. All they're doing is getting an escrow. Escrow
Mhm.
is the time where you can buy a home, and the first real dollar that you spend, which doesn't get reimbursed if for some reason the deal doesn't make sense, is the home inspection report, right? And if you find something that is detrimental, you can cancel the escrow, you can get your deposit back, but the money they spend on the inspections is non-refundable. So, what are some things that you would, things for people to look for when they're walking through a home before they decide to even write?
Well, the first thing I think that any person buying a home, any person in escrow should ask themselves is, what is a deal killer for a move? Because
Mm.
that is, I'm going to find stuff. Even brand new homes have things to write about, deficiencies in different systems, maybe. But the question is, what's your deal killer? If you don't want to think about asbestos, don't buy anything that was built before 1979, for example. So, and that's the kind of thing. If you don't ever want to have a structural concern about the home, don't buy something on it. that kind of thing. Like, what is really a deal killer for you, and then work from there. Right. The biggest factor, in my experience, uh, overall, about what might go wrong in a home is the age of the home. Right. So that ties into some galvanized steel piping in the distribution piping, asbestos in different components, electrical systems that were outdated, or that kind of thing. So the age of the home is going to be the biggest factor. So that's what you want to know first. And then there are some things that you can do before you ever get an inspection that are just visual cues to that might be indicative of your deal killers, say, or the things that you just don't want to deal with. And one of those is like stipple or popcorn ceilings. Those can contain asbestos. That, coupled with a home that was built before 1979, you have a good chance of that happening, right? Another thing is looking at the electrical panel. Has it ever been upgraded, or does it look like it came with the home? Right, for example,
The old knob and
um,
tube panel, you saying that's not good anymore?
yeah, fuses and then different things. Yeah, just there's actually a lot of ways that an electrical panel can be obsolete. But yeah, you
Right.
want to look at some of those like integral components of the home and see if they've ever had renovation or upgrades. And if they haven't, then those are going to be a lot of the areas where you're going to find deficiencies.
What are some things specifically in LA? Like I know, every sub market has their little quirks. What are some of the things that you see that are most common by doing most all of your inspections here in Southern California?
Well, I'd say one of the most common things that, and it's not every home or anything, but something major to consider in Southern California specifically is that we had a huge housing boom in the 20s and 30s and 40s in this area. So a huge number, a huge percentage of the homes, the single family homes especially in our areas, are approaching 100 years of
Mm.
age. And most of them are built on concrete foundations over crawl spaces. And those concrete foundations have an approximately 100-year lifespan. So, a major thing in California for anything that's built in the 20s or 30s or 40s is a foundation with a 100-year life expectancy approaching 100 years old. So, that is one thing that is really, really common in our area. Another is there are some uh, along with that housing boom, actually, there are some problematic manufacturers of electrical equipment, such as Zinsco or Federal Pacific, manufacturers that are known to have issues, and they were very prolific in our area. So I see them a lot. Um, so those kinds of things are I think it's mostly tied to the great housing boom that we had in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, there some of those old electric panels. If you have them, you can't even get insurance. Like you have to replace it before you can even get a policy on the house. Another one
Certainly.
that we see a lot, and especially down here in the South Bay where we do a lot of business, is in the 70s and 80s. There was a couple of manufacturers that were using copper piping that they were buying from China, and that the piping was very, very
Oh yeah.
thin, and it's
Hmm.
been failing over the last 20 years. So
Hmm.
if your house was built in that time frame, a great question to ask is whether or not it's been replumbed. And if it is using copper, there's a good chance that you're just a minute or two away from having a water leak.
Certainly. And actually, one of the most interesting that I find is whenever I'm inspecting a home that was built between 1968 and 1971, one of the most important things I want to do is go to look inside the distribution panel or sub panel for the electrical to see if there's aluminum wiring. Because between 1968 and 1971, the Vietnam War took all the copper.
That's interesting. That's a good fact. I never knew that one.
Yeah. So if you're looking at
68 to
anything between
70.
68 to 71, you wanna get a look inside that panel to see if you've got aluminum wiring, because that can create its own issues.
All right. Well, let's say we've got our report back. You've done your thing and you've delivered your report back. And that's an overwhelming time for a buyer, right? There can be a lot of scary things that come off of an inspection report, even though it's very common, right? Very I mean, even the new construction stuff we've done together, they're never perfect. There's always something, and that's your job. How do you help, kind of steer people from, look, these things are catastrophic and could, I should rethink my purchase versus, look, these are things that are cosmetic or things that can be addressed very, very easily.
Well, certainly. Well, I would never use the phrase catastrophic with the client.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. My one of the most important things for a home inspector is to talk about things in context, because, as you said, a home buyer is maybe doing this once every 15 years. A home inspector sees this all the time, right? So, like, things all age the same way. Right? So everything is basically on an understandable spectrum of condition, right? So I think it's largely one of the biggest parts of the job of being a home inspector is to explain in context that what you're looking for, right? Because that for a mid-century home or a home in this of this age and in this location, that these are totally normal conditions. Not that you don't want to fix this or do that, but you just want to have that information, but that they are normal. Right? You're not what's not going to be wildly different from the house next door. That you're not buying the death trap and everybody else is in a perfect home. So I would never say catastrophic, because people have their own budgets, people have their own plans, people have their own desires. But I do think it's very important for the home inspector to talk about what he thinks or she thinks is cosmetic and what should be addressed right away. I think I try to talk to, in terms of like a triage, basically. Actually, I have an example from the inspection I did this morning. There was sort of wear and tear, cosmetic damage to flooring throughout the home because it's been lived in. But in the bathroom, in one of the bathrooms, some of the tile was cracked near the shower and near the toilet. So normally, that's a totally normal condition. But if you're close to plumbing fixtures like that, that should be fixed first, because it's a little more than cosmetic, because you can get water damage into your subfloor because you're in a bathroom, right? So the same cracking that would be totally cosmetic in the living room becomes more of an issue that should be fixed in a bathroom, for example. So I do think that and in that case this morning, I did have two notes, basically. One note for the whole home that said the normal cosmetic damage throughout on the floors, but in this bathroom, that should be fixed.
Yeah, and I love it. If for a typical report, usually you'll go through and summarize the things that are like, hey, these are issues that need to be addressed. And then you get the list of like everything. Just, hey, I looked at this, it was fine. I looked at that, it was fine. But even that stuff could have interesting information in there, for someone who might be looking to renovate a house or something like that.
Oh, certainly. The way that I put my reports together, there's always a summary page at the very top. And those list the safety items, big ticket things, anything that is approaching or past its life expectancy, such as a furnace or a water heater, that kind of thing. So things I particularly want people to know about. But then there's 80 more pages of report that just document the condition and operation of everything. And it's not I do put on the summary page what I think is important and should be highlighted. But that doesn't mean that something that you never know what's going to be important to a client. What a client might fixate on or want to elevate and become part of your negotiations. And in that case, I'd be happy to elevate something to the summary page that I think is a normal condition, but is very important to the client.
All right. Well, we talked about it on the buyer side, but what about the seller side? I know we just had a property where, I sensed that there was some things that will come up on an inspection report, and we wanted to get a pre-sale inspection just so maybe we can get in front of some of those things. So when we do get it under contract, we have a better sense of what an inspector may find, and we might have a chance at fixing some of those things before we even put it on the market. How often are you doing inspections for sellers, and how is it different than what you might do for a buyer?
My pre-listing inspection percentage is about 5%. My escrow, my buyer clients are about 95% of my business. There are areas in the world where pre-listing inspections are common. We just don't live in one here in Southern California. That's never made a lot of sense to me. Because if I were selling my home, I would want to know what ammunition was going to be used against me. So it's never really made a lot of sense to me not to do a pre-listing inspection. However, that said, the inspection is no different. The way I approach a pre-listing inspection as opposed to an inspection for an escrow client, eh, I'm doing the same exact job. I'm still finding exactly the same stuff, and presenting it hopefully in the same way. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important too, because there's a perception that people have, right? So if I inspect the property and I come back and there's 40 things on the summary page, my perception is that this home is not well maintained. Versus if there are a bunch of things that are just small things that are very easy to fix, and instead that inspection report comes back and there's only 10 things on it, right? Like it just may change the perception and the value of that home and that buyer's mind, which is why I
Hmm.
like to have seller inspections done, just so we can take care of the obvious stuff and focus. The big stuff, let the next buyer take care of that. But some of the smaller stuff, it might be worth handling up front.
Certainly, and I think a lot of sellers who do inspections are like that. They want to be upfront and say, "Look, the furnace is already 25 years old. I'm not replacing it." And you don't generally want the seller to replace those things because they have an incentive, of course, to do the cheapest thing on the market, which might not be the what the buyer wants, right? So in a lot of those cases, you just want to be really upfront about what the condition of the home is, and so that you can say these are the things your inspector is going to find. They already found them, so don't come back at us with a lot of negotiation. I think a pre-listing inspection really shortens your escrow.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, hey, I appreciate you spending some time today to talk about this. I hope if you found it valuable. If you're watching, if you like this kind of content and want to see more, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button below. We generate all kinds of great content, talking to home professionals, all about things about buying, selling, and owning a home. Kevin, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to see you always. And if anybody needs help or has more questions about anything, they can reach me at 213-328-2555.
Awesome. And we'll put that down below. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the next show.